The Atlanta Braves invested a lot of money into getting Jarred Kelenic last offseason after a tough 2024 season where we really didn't see him take the steps forward we were hoping to see. Are the Braves willing to give up on him? We'll discuss that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopABall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button as well so others can find us here at Locked On Braves on YouTube. You're listening on the audio version. You can help me out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also on YouTube, make sure you leave me a comment. Try to get to all the comments there, especially from yesterday's episode. A lot of great conversations happening there. So I appreciate you for doing that, letting me know that you're an everydayer here at Locked On Braves. Today's podcast, we're going to continue this 2024 player review and also looking ahead to 2025 with Jarred Kelenic, another name that a lot of you are very interested to discuss after, the Braves invested a lot in him to acquire him, hoping he would be the left fielder of the future after 2024. Are you feeling more or less confident in that being the case? That's what we'll discuss on today's episode, which is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, before we can really dive into Jarred Kelenic and what the future of Jarred Kelenic looks like, we not only have to go back to the 2024 season, look at the numbers, we got to go back to last offseason. The Braves initially took on almost $30 million in order to acquire Jarred Kelenic. They invested a lot of money in order to get Jarred Kelenic. It ended up being around $19 million that went against the 2024 payroll. And they were able to bring that number down a little bit by, moving Marco Gonzalez, moving Owen White and others to try to shed some of that salary in other ways. But still, the Braves took on a lot of money. They did a lot of maneuvering in order to get Jarred Kelenic, who was essentially a former top prospect, but a little bit of a reclamation project. And I said a lot last offseason, you don't go and make this move unless you see something that you can change with Jarred Kelenic, that you believe that you have the coaches who are now no longer with the team, hitting coaches anyway, you have the right approach to turn Jarred Kelenic around. Because again, that was a huge investment money-wise to go and get Jarred Kelenic, somebody who hadn't been proven at the major league level, but somebody who obviously was a former top prospect, has a lot of potential. And I think we saw some of that in 2024. And you look at it in hindsight, which is always much easier to do. The Braves could have just taken that money, signed Teoscar Hernandez to a 1-year, $24 million deal like the Dodgers did, and you probably would have been much better off doing so. But I think the hope from the Braves was that they were going to get a cheap long-term option while they had to take on a lot of money in order to acquire Jarred Kelenic. The contract for him is actually very cheap, as he is just now going into his first arbitration eligible season, and he is controllable for a long time. And I think that was the hope for the Atlanta Braves, to go get a young outfielder that can be their everyday left fielder for the foreseeable future at a very, good cost. That was the hope. Then, even before the season started in spring training, the Braves kind of pivot from the initial plan to make him an everyday left fielder, and they go out and get Adam Duvall for $3 million. Now, we talked about it a lot then. I think the move to go get Adam Duvall was just, there was an opportunity to go get a veteran outfielder for very cheap to back up and be a right-handed platoon to Jarred Kelenic. But, it did kind of take away the opportunity for Jarred Kelenic to show from the get-go that he could be an everyday left fielder. And you wonder how much of that was based on what the Braves saw from him in spring training, which again, I don't know how much you really could take from what you were seeing in spring training. But obviously those coaches and front office, they're there every day. And again, we don't know if the Adam Duvall move was strictly because they didn't think that Jarred Kelenic was going to be able to hit left-handed. They didn't think he was taking well to the approach changes that they were trying to teach him. We don't know, and we probably never will. But again, all the talk was he's going to get a chance to play every day in left field, and then a couple of weeks before spring training ends and the season begins, all of a sudden he's a platoon player, a strong side platoon player, but he's a platoon player for the Atlanta Braves with Adam Duvall in the mix. Now you look at the 2024 season, and you look at his overall numbers, /231, 286, 393 with 15 home runs, which was a career high. And you get him in Atlanta, and what's the one thing that they love to do? Hit home runs. And we saw him do that more than he has at any point in his career. He also stole 7 bases, had a 7.1% walk rate, a 29.6% strikeout rate. That was the lowest over the last 3 seasons. The 2 seasons prior to that, it was of over 30%. So slight improvement there, maybe. An 86 WRC plus 100 is average. So again, well below average player offensively, and just 0.5 F WAR. So just looking on the numbers at a whole, it was a bad season for Jarred Kelenic. He was not good. He was not even league average. He was worse than he was the season before with Seattle. Just looking at the numbers. Now you look at the metrics on Baseball Savant for Jarred Kelenic. It's a 243 expected batting average and a 418 expected slug, which is higher than his actual numbers. An 89.8 mile per hour average exit velocity, that's 62nd percentile. 9.9% barrel rate is 66th percentile. 45.2% hard hit rate is 74th percentile. And 38.2% launch angle sweet spot percentage is 84th percentile. So a lot of his batted ball metrics are well above average and very good. However, most of these metrics are pretty much in line with what we've seen from Jarred Kelenic throughout the rest of his big league career. In fact, many of them were slightly worse than they were in 2023, and just a few of them were slightly better. So clearly, the adjustments that the Braves had in mind for Jarred Kelenic didn't improve the results dramatically at all. Like I said, all of the metrics were either the same or worse or just slightly better. The numbers were worse than in 2023. So if the Braves saw something in Jarred Kelenic that made them give up all this money, do all this maneuvering to acquire him, it doesn't seem like that worked. And maybe that's unfair in year one. But again, over the course of the entire season, you didn't really see anything working. In fact, he got worse as the season went on in the final couple of months, when he ultimately lost his job altogether, even as a strong side platoon bat. Looking at the splits, he had a 711 OPS against righties and just a 515 OPS against left-handed pitching. That was in 68 at-bats against lefties this year. So not a huge sample size, but now you look at his career against lefties, which is 338 at-bats, a much larger sample size. He's hitting just 192 with a 556 OPS against left-handed pitchers. And no, the wild one, I don't think Jarred Kelenic is a future Hall of Famer, but it is pretty clear at this point he has struggled mightily against left-handed pitchers, and he is essentially a platoon player right now. He had a great month of June and had everyone hopeful that, maybe it was a slow start trying to make those mechanical changes, that maybe things were coming along as the season went. And then, like I said, he finished the season very poorly to the point where he pretty much lost any playing time with the Braves down the stretch. In the month of June, though, he slashed 304, 356, 543 with 4 doubles, 6 home runs, and 3 stolen bases. However, in that month, his walk rate was still just 6.9%. So not something that's really going to help boost your on-base percentage when your BABIP is no longer 355, which is what it was in the month of June. So he was getting some great batted ball luck. And like I said, when he makes contact, he generally makes pretty good contact. A lot of it is to the pull side. But again, he makes good contact when that happens. And in the month of June, he was able to bring his strikeout rate down to 24.8%, which is still not great, but it would be a huge improvement over the 30% strikeout rate that he's had for the last 3 years now. Again, with his batted ball profile, if he can cut his strikeout rate down 5%, I think we are looking at somebody that can be a good, not great, everyday player, or at least somebody that's a really good, strong side platoon player. But having a strikeout rate near 30% is just not going to cut it. You have to be able to be an elite power type of hitter, when you are making contact. And again, he's making good quality of contact, but he's not getting the results. And you can't do that, or rather not do that, and strike out 30% of the time. Now, to be fair, a lot was asked of him in 2024. The plan initially was for him to come over, be an everyday player before the Adam Duvall move, hit at the bottom of the lineup with a little pressure. A guy who was a top prospect, came up for the Mariners. A lot of pressure was on him as they needed offense, wasn't able to deliver. The thought was you bring him over to this Atlanta Braves lineup, which is going to be stacked with talent, where it's not really going to matter if he's batting 8th and 9th and not producing. Nobody's going to notice because the rest of the lineup is so good. Well, that did not quite work out in 2024. Next thing you know, he's getting moved up to the top of the order. And look, he handled that well that month of June, where he got put in the leadoff spot to replace Acuna. He was fantastic. But ultimately that fizzled out, and he just wasn't able to recover. And not only that, with Michael Harris being injured, he was asked to play center field a lot, which is a much more demanding defensive position. And you just wonder what toll that took on him. So again, a lot was asked of him in 2024 with all the injuries. He was asked to be a bigger contributor offensively. With the injuries to Michael Harris, he was asked to play a much more demanding position defensively. So a lot was asked of him. He started 47 games in center field, just 64 in left field, which is where you're supposed to primarily play. Now, quickly looking at the defense here, -3 outs above average on the season, -1 in center field, -2 in left field, 81st percentile in arm strength, 65th percentile in sprint speed. So can run a little bit, and as we know, has a very strong arm. You look over at FanGraphs, -3 in defensive run saves in left field, 0 DRS in center field, a -0.8 UZR in left field, 1.4 in center field. This is one of those, and I talk about it all the time with defensive metrics. This is one where the eye test doesn't pass with what the metrics are telling me, because especially earlier in the year, I thought Jarred Kelenic was going to win a Gold Glove in left field. He looked fantastic out there, making some great diving plays, the strong arm that he has. And then, like I said, he got moved to center, and I thought he did fine in center for a while. And then I felt like most of the gaffes he made defensively this year came in center field. So again, my eye test is telling me that he was really good in left field defensively. He was okay, serviceable in center field. But the metrics don't necessarily agree with me on that. So I'd love to know your opinions. But the eye test, again, and I believe that Jarred Kelenic is a really good defender in left field. And, I trust my eyes more than I do defensive metrics at this point. So I certainly believe that he is a fine defender in left field, but not good enough for what you're not getting from him offensively. And that certainly has to get better if Jarred Kelenic's going to have a chance to earn more playing time, get a shot as an everyday player, get a shot as a strong side platoon player. He's going to have to pick it up offensively. So we'll talk about what the plan could be for him in 2025. Do the Braves keep him around? Do they look to trade him this offseason? We'll discuss that here next. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And if you're into the postseason as well, they have World Series odds listed out there. Right now, the New York Yankees are the favorite at -105. That's gone up a lot since I did this read the other day. The Dodgers are right behind them at +185. The Mets +430, and the lowly Guardians all the way down there at +1400. And you can see all that over on FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, solely catching up with everything happening at the postseason. And right now, the Guardians, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers battling it out in the championship series. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. We'll continue with some more of our player reviews and previews on tomorrow's episode, leading up to our mailbag episode on Friday. But 3 more podcasts coming your way this week here on Locked On Braves. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell on YouTube so you get notified whenever we start a new live episode. A lot of these podcasts in the offseason will be live episodes, so come join me. Typically, we'll start around 8:30, 9 p.m. Central every night during the week. Now, getting back into our discussion about Jarred Kelenic, what is the plan going forward? Like I said, the Braves took on a lot of money, did a lot of maneuvering to get Jarred Kelenic. We did not see the changes that we were hoping to see in 2024. Do the Braves stick with him going forward? He'll be arbitration eligible for the first time in 2025 and is projected to make $2.3 million. So still very affordable. However, it is a very crowded outfield as things stand now. And we're all kind of speculating that there will be some sort of shakeup in the outfield this offseason, whether that is to trade Jorge Soler, which is what I think they should do, or maybe to trade Jarred Kelenic. Assuming everything stays the same, though, you have to at least figure that he'll be behind Acuna, Michael Harris, and Jorge Soler, who all seem to be pretty solid locks as starting outfielders if the season started today. And he honestly might even be behind Ramon Laureano. And at the very least, those two would be platoon partners. But Laureano obviously overtook that job despite who was on the mound at the end of last year. So you got 5 outfielders right now on your roster going into 2025 already, and Jarred Kelenic may be at the bottom of that list. So it's going to be very difficult for him to find playing time. Would the Braves cut bait and consider this a failed experiment after all that they gave up to get him? Not player-wise, but money-wise, it seems unlikely. He'll turn 26 in July, and he's at least proven to be a solid, strong side platoon option. Not great. Certainly, you would love somebody that's more 750, 800 OPS type of player batting against righties if the left-handed hitter, if it's going to be a platoon-only type of option. But he has been serviceable as a left-handed bat against righties. Do you ride with him on the bench and wait for an opportunity? Injuries are just a part of the game, and as we've seen, things can change very quickly. And this feels like the most likely scenario to me, is that Jarred Kelenic is back. Even if you do trade Jorge Soler, like I said, I think best case scenario is that he's a strong side platoon partner with Ramon Laureano in left field to begin next season. And that's assuming the Braves don't acquire anybody if they do trade somebody away. But that feels like the most likely scenario, is that, he's on the bench to begin the season. You get him some at-bats here or there, and you just wait for an opportunity to open up. Again, we don't really know exactly what it's going to look like for Ronald Acuna Jr. yet. Will he be ready to go to start the season? Even if he is, will he need some time here or there? So there could be opportunities to get into the lineup. But again, the most likely scenario for me is that he's going to be a bench player. There is the possibility that the Braves are able to send him down to Gwinnett. According to FanGraphs, he has 1 minor league option left. He does not have 5 years of service time, and the Braves did not use an option on him this last year. You got to be in the minors for more than 20 days, and that was not the case for Jarred Kelenic. So he should still have a minor league option left in 2025. And if that is the case, and somebody can confirm that for me in the comment section below, but if that is the case and he has a minor league option left next year, I think the best route, assuming, again, that you keep all these outfitters that you have, is to send Jarred Kelenic down to AAA, let him continue to work on things until an opportunity presents itself, or he just plays himself into earning another opportunity. I think that's probably the best decision for the Atlanta Braves, and maybe even Jarred Kelenic, to just let him, in a more stress-free environment, and maybe hear a new voice too. We talked about yesterday's episode, the new coaching changes. We don't know who they're bringing in yet, but maybe they can say something to spark change in Jarred Kelenic to get him going, let him continue to work on the things they talked about last year, and see if he can just work on those things and get better. Again, he is still 25 years old. Again, a lot of talent. We've seen glimpses here and there. Even with Seattle last year, he got off to a great start. He had great June this year. Can he put it all together? And what if he does put it all together? What is the best possible outcome for Jarred Kelenic? Would love to know your thoughts on this. What do you think the ceiling is for Jarred Kelenic? Do you still think there's all-star level potential in there? I don't. I don't. At this point, for me, his 2023 numbers feel like the ceiling. I hate to say ceiling because it's not like it was a great year, but the pace he was on, if you don't consider the injuries, I think 2023, he was showing what his ceiling is. And I think his ceiling is a 250 to 260-ish type of hitter, 15 to 20 home runs, and an OPS in the mid 700s. And that's not bad. Again, especially for a guy who the Braves, if everybody's healthy, he'd be batting 8th or 9th in your order. I would certainly take that. I would take that player. But again, I think that's his best case scenario. I think that's his ceiling. Personally, I don't love the profile for Jarred Kelenic. You've been listening to the podcast for a while now. And again, if you listen to yesterday's episode, you know that I am looking for some diversity in the lineup, of bigger focus on guys who can make contact, focus on getting on base. Those are the types of guys that I'm looking for, especially at the bottom of the order, which is where Jarred Kelenic would be. The low walk rate, the high chase rate, the high K rate. I just don't love that profile in the spot that he's going to be batting in. I'd rather have a contact guy at the bottom of the order with some speed to set the table for the top. And I think you can find that profile out there. Somebody that can, also somebody that can give you double-digit homers and double-digit steals, or at least push for that. But more importantly, I want somebody at the bottom of the order that can work a walk, that can get on base, that can make contact, that has a little bit of speed. I would prefer that over what Jarred Kelenic might give you even in his best year, which is a 250, 260-ish average, middle of the teens home runs. Again, I just want more diversity in this lineup. I don't need another guy that's going to strike out 30% of the time. I just feel like there's enough of that in this lineup right now that if the guy's not going to hit 30-plus home runs, then go out and get somebody that's at least going to make contact, that's going to do something a little bit different for you to help you score in different ways. So I'm okay with moving on from the Jarred Kelenic experience. I think the guy has a ton of ability. I think everything you hear is that he has a great work ethic. He wants to be great. I just don't love the profile for what I'm wanting to see in this offense going forward. And that's the main reason for me why I'd be ready to and willing to move on from Jarred Kelenic if it makes sense. Now, he is cheap. I would not just give him away, especially if he does have that minor league option left. I would not just give him away. And what could you realistically get for him? I think is the other part of this for those who are just saying, trade Kelenic. I think best case scenario, I feel like I've said that a lot this episode, I'll try to refrain, is that maybe you get a decent reliever in return for him. Maybe you get a middling prospect. Maybe you attach him in a deal, in a bigger deal. Maybe if you did try to trade Jorge Soler, that you attach Jarred Kelenic to him. It doesn't really make sense. Throw two outfielders in the same deal. But again, I don't think you're going to get a lot for Jarred Kelenic in a trade. It would more so just be getting rid of him. And I don't think that is a wise decision. I would rather just hold on to him. Again, send him down to AAA, let him continue to work on some things, and maybe things do click, and he starts to reach that ceiling that we talked about, and he gets another opportunity. So, again, I think he's either moved as part of another deal, or you send him down to AAA, let him work on some things to begin the season and wait for an opportunity to open up and hope that something clicks with him. But let me know, what do you think the Braves should do with Jarred Kelenic going into 2025? I see Z Corp confirming that he does have one minor league option left. Again, on FanGraphs, what you see there, one minor league option, that's pre-2024. But again, I don't think they use that option in 2024, as they obviously never sent him to the minors. So I think that option carries over because he has less than 5 years of service time. But again, please, if you do know and are more in tuned with the options and how they work, please let me know down in the comments section below. But again, I'm pretty sure that he has that option left. But again, I would not just trade him. All right, let me put my final thoughts together here. I'm ready to move. I'm willing to move on from Jarred Kelenic. However, I would not just give him away for the sake of giving him away, because it is still somebody who is controllable, cost affordable, and does have some potential and has a minor league option left. So again, I would not just give him away, but I certainly am not expecting him to be the everyday left fielder going into 2025. But again, let me know your thoughts on that in the comment section below. What do you think the Braves should do with Jarred Kelenic in 2025? All right, next we will look at the postseason pitcher and get some of your comments on what you thought that the Braves should do with Jarred Kelenic. We'll discuss that here next. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Gametime, which is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. And Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer that it gets to first pitch. I've experienced that myself. Last couple of Braves games I've went to, I've used the Gametime app, constantly checking the app as they have flash deals in there all the time, and those prices will go down as you get closer to game time. I also love that you can filter it to get the all-in price right there in one screen. Buy your ticket. It's so user-friendly when you use the Gametime app. Plus, you get the Gametime guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Gametime app today. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Again, terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code LOCKONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So just giving some final thoughts here on Jarred Kelenic. I asked some of you what you would do with Jarred Kelenic going into 2025. So I'll read off some of your responses here as we wrap up the episode. But many of you kind of agreed with me that sending him down to AAA. Randy says AAA this year and determine if he's depth or if he could be the future left fielder. I think that is a pretty optimal solution. Kirby D, I don't know why Kelenic isn't best friends with Chipper yet, but I need them to be. He's got raw potential that I would love to see harnessed. Endurance Yarte fan says, I seriously think you leave him in AAA, give him the 2021 Kyle Wright treatment. So another vote for sending him to AAA. Ryan Hall, he could absolutely be an 800 OPS guy. Showed glimpses, but not quite. I don't know if I believe that, but again, give me 750, give me 775. I think I'm fine with that. Anthony says, shipping him anywhere else. Thomas says, include him in the forthcoming trade of Soler. Blake says, to trade him, too many outfielders. STB, move him. AJ Evans, platoon. Only way you put platoon, though, is if you trade Soler. That would open up a platoon with Laureano and Kelenic. And then what if Laureano just takes the spot again? But I do think that is a potential possibility for Jarred Kelenic going into 2025 as being a strong side platoon player. But I do not expect to go into the season with that being the plan. If it happens, yes, if injuries occur, then you have, somebody who has big league experience in Jarred Kelenic. But I think if the Braves had it their way, Jarred Kelenic would either be, on the bench as a left-handed bat or in AAA continuing to get work. Looking at the postseason update, the Yankees are up 6-2. Looks like they're going to run away with that ALCS. As I said yesterday, the American League was pretty much gift-wrapped to the Yankees this year, so I expect them to kind of blow through that series. Dodgers and Mets will pick things back up on Wednesday night with that series tied at 1 game apiece. Getting back into some of your comments, Daniel Brown says, hold on to him unless we can get a good reliever. And like I said, I think that is, I said I wasn't going to say this again. I think that would be best case scenario in a trade, that you move Jarred Kelenic and get a decent reliever. I think that'd be the best possible return that you could get for somebody who just, I don't think has a lot of value right now. Matt Mock, ALCS is flat out boring. I agree. I don't even have TBS on with Fubo TV, so I haven't been able to watch any of it, but I really just don't have any interest in seeing any of the American League matchups. They've all been pretty boring, in my opinion. The National League has been great, but the American League has been quite terrible. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you for all your comments, the over 100 people who joined me here live, including Protect PR, Z Corp, Matt Mock, who I just read a comment from, Jeffrey Humphreys, an everydayer of Wolf and Man, her in here as well, Joe Me, an everydayer. Thank you so much, Miguel Fria as well. I really appreciate you all joining me. Docs Cards, who sent me this amazing Andrelton Simmons PSA 10 rookie auto card that you can see right behind me. Shout out to Docs Cards for sending that over. I really do appreciate it. Simba being my favorite Braves player. So that's a really nice gift there from Doc. I appreciate it. Appreciate all of you joining me here on today's episode. Really does mean a lot to me, all the support that you give me here on the show. Max Waskam joining in as well here at the end. I really appreciate you. Make sure that you continue to make Locked On Braves your first listen of the day, and check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Let's continue this discussion about Jarred Kelenic and what you think the Braves should do with him going forward. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.